Yo, what's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Live on the Lawn. And hey, I'm your host, Jeremy Haynes, also known as your topic tour guide. And I got my good friend, Tay, otherwise known as Taylor.
Yes.
Tay B. Got T-Bone.
All right.
Got Tay Heard. Say what's up to the people. Tell what's up.
Hello. Very excited to be here.
Well, it's an honor. It's an honor. We've talked about this it's been such a long time. We've been like, it's actually funny because we talked about this when I didn't have a podcast.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, let's do this. And it was funny. You always like come to me, you'd be like, yo, so when are we going to do this?
Yeah.
And I'm just like, it's I'm not procrastinating. It's going to happen soon.
It had to be one of us.
Oh, no.
You're
100%.
going first.
And it's actually funny because the way how this podcast, I feel like I kind of got launched into it was by my homie, Jalen. Which, if y'all know anything about Jalen, I always try to talk about him as much as possible. Like, that guy is legit. Looks like Fred VanVleet, man of integrity character. Love that guy. But getting on his podcast is actually what got me into mine. And I believe that you being on my podcast is going to be the catalyst for you to jump into yours.
You know what's so crazy?
Oh, go for it.
I parked my car, then I was on my way to your apartment, like walking, and I recorded a video because I was like, I'm going to look back at this video. And in the video, I was like, I feel like this is the start of something, just something. Like, I was like, I'm going to look back on this video and be like, that was the start of, your podcast, maybe mine, maybe a collab. Like, but yeah, I felt like we got the green light. Like, when you texted and we're like, hey, come on the pod, I was like, yeah, it's time.
And it was super random too. It was like yesterday, I think I was just like sitting down meditating, very tranquil, and I was like, Taylor. No, I'm joking. I was just thinking about people that I wanted to have on the podcast and people that I wanted to have conversations with, and to learn about their life and their experiences. And furthermore, I know when someone has something to say that needs to be heard. Her last name is Heard. And I know when that's like, when it speaks to me, and I'm like, if this speaks to me, there's a bunch of other people that need to hear it. And so for me, just the conversations that we have had have been such a blessing in my life to talk with someone and be like, dang, they get it too. And not that I know everything, that sounds crazy, but like, you would say this, I'm like, that's a bar.
No, like, if we would have hit record during all of our conversations, we would have had 3 seasons of podcasts,
4 seasons, and a hotel. Y'all, that's gonna go over something y'all said. Okay, but I want to get into it real quick. Before I do, I always do something here on the lawn. For every guest that I have on, I write them a poem. And so I wrote you a poem.
Oh my gosh.
I wrote you a poem. Can I read it? Should I read it right now? Okay, I'm going to do it. So I said, this is for you, Tay. It says, the world looks for light, but it's something that's hard to find. But in a world full of darkness, shining is your design. They say you can tell a lot about a person by the words they say, but I've learned more about your life by the path you choose to take. So thank you for letting the sun rise in every conversation and every moment of your day. It's seen in both the way you walk and the words you have to say.
How are you going to invite me on a podcast and leave me speechless? Now I don't know what to say.
Well,
that was beautiful.
Thank you.
You have such a way with words. Now anything I say, I'm going to sound so dumb.
No, you can't say that. Bro, that's not how that works. If your last name is Heard, you don't have a choice.
Heard you.
See? That's what I'm talking about. She has bars. It just comes out of nowhere. And I'm just like, I can't do this. But, yeah, I appreciate that. I feel like, for me, and I think we can kind of jump in from this point, like, growing up, it's funny, people tell me now, like, Jeremy, you have a way with words, you have something to say. And a lot of my life I was really shy. I was really I was like shy, overweight, bald. I don't know, like every black kid between the ages of like 10 and like 15 is just, no, maybe it's 7 and 15 is just bald. That's not true. But that was
bald is insane. Where'd the hair come from?
I don't know. Like I look in the mirror and I'm just like, I don't know how this happened. This is not even close to my origin story whatsoever. But like I was shy. Yeah. I didn't have like a whole lot to say. And I started learning that my experience mattered. My experience mattered, and I would talk to people and they would listen. And I started realizing more and more that my experience resonates with so many people, but I think a lot of times in life we try to resign from our experience, and we don't realize the thing that we're trying to resign from is actually meant to resonate. So like the thing we think disqualifies us, or oh, I'm shy, or oh, I don't have a voice, or oh, I don't have this experience, is actually when you step out and you're honest and you're vulnerable and you're open, people want to listen. And so I would love, because I know you, they don't know you, I would love for you to just kind of tell me like about your experience, about just some things in your life, like where you're from, and yeah, just kind of like some of your experience growing up. And like what makes T-Bone Taylor Heard who she is.
Wow. I think it's such an interesting point of my life to ask that question, because opposite to you, my mom always reminds me of this. I have never been shy. She said, difference between my brother and I dropping us off to daycare, like I was like, see ya. My brother was like on her leg, like she was like, you just have always been like extroverted, social, outward, bopping around the house, dancing, singing, and performing. So like I've always been like an expressive person. And I mean, my main vehicle for expression was basketball. Grew up playing sports. Played
Walking
basketball
bucket.
in college. Played basketball overseas for a season. So
overseas, my bad.
that was that was always my vehicle of expression. But I think sports was also something my parents pushed me towards. And I feel like, I've always said this, I feel like up until 18, you were learning. Like you're always learning from your parents, learning from your teachers, learning from your friends. You're just in this like malleable sponge stage. But then after 18, you start unlearning things and you start finding your individuality without those external opinions, or at least like that was my experience. I felt like my identity was a lot from my parents because I respected them. Like they did a lot for me growing up. So I obviously like valued what they had to say. But especially after playing basketball, I was like, I've always liked music. Like I want to try to get into that. Like I've always liked podcasting. Like that's something to try. And I feel like sports has afforded me so many opportunities. It's been a vehicle. Like it's got me overseas. It's got me education. So I'm so grateful for that. But it also didn't let me explore a lot of other things that I'm interested in. And so I think now I'm just starting to try like a bunch of different things, because I feel like we do listen to the noise and it's hard to tell like what we like versus what we're supposed to like from other people. And so I'm just in this like beautiful stage, especially being in LA and having so many things to try and like so many things to do, and like just being around creatives and being around people that are so authentic and like so expressive. Like I think that's been encouraging to me because it's really gotten me out of my comfort zone, because I mean I was good at basketball, so it was easy for me to do something I was good at. But these other things that are new, I'm not good at them. So it's like hard to try things that you're not good at, because it's like you give up quicker, you know? Like, so what was the question? I think I was setting something up. What was the question?
I was asking like, tell me about like where you're from, your background, and I feel like you have already so well. But yeah, like where are you from in the world?
I'm from the East Coast.
Word.
I'm an East Coast girly. Out here in LA, there's so many differences. But I'm from, so I claim Philly. Go Birds. Ignore the jersey I'm wearing.
And that's crazy because we both pulled up. She's wearing a Packers jersey. I'm wearing a Raiders jersey. And we both don't rep any of those teams. So I just think that's hilarious.
I have no loyalty. Like,
that's hilarious.
But like, Go Birds. So I claim Philly. I'm from like an hour outside.
Okay. And you know what? That's fair. Hold on. Let's talk about this.
Okay.
And we'll get back to this point, but let's talk about this. Okay. I talk to people all the time. And I will tell them, I'm like, oh, like, I'm like, okay, my origin story is really confusing because I was born in Louisiana. I lived in Washington for a minute. I moved to Chicago, Illinois, and then now I live in LA. So it depends on what part of the journey I want to introduce you to myself. So people are like, oh, like, where are you from? I'm like, oh, Seattle. Like, oh, I'm from Seattle. I'm like, where? And I'll talk to someone else. They're like, I'm from Chicago. I'm like, I am. And my friends are like, they're sitting there like, how does that? I'm like, bro, we don't got to do all this. But when you are talking to someone, I actually wasn't really like technically from Seattle. I lived closer to like Lake Stevens.
Okay.
Which exactly, you're like, I have no idea where that is. So that's why I say Seattle. So it makes sense that you would claim Philly because no one, what's the place that you're like actually from? What's it called? Oh, she said we ain't gonna talk about that.
Quakertown. But wait,
so y'all
you know Sabrina Carpenter?
Yeah, word.
Sabrina Carpenter, Quakertown, Pennsylvania.
That's crazy.
So Quakertown breeds stars. Y'all heard it here first.
Quakertown,
went to the same public high school.
Oh, really?
But that's what I'm saying. Like, what other landmark am I supposed to use for people to know where Quakertown is?
I feel like Quakertown's hard, bro, because I just think about the Quaker Oats. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, you're from. That's where you're from, bro. The guy with the hat, like, that's where you're from. Bro, their granola bars not healthy, but
the chocolate chip. Yeah.
I'm just like,
so
Quakertown. That's
9,000 people.
9,000 people. Did you know a lot of them?
All of them.
All of them is crazy, but she did say she was like a little Uzi extrovert, so I'm not even surprised. Okay, that's crazy.
Yeah.
So growing up what does it look like for you growing up in such a small city and making that transition of moving to LA and being a part of this big, just different world?
Yeah. Like, I feel like I've been the black sheep in so many different environments. Like, my family. I'm not gonna lie,
she is like spicy mayo, like, for real. But go on.
My family, like, homebodies, they will never leave Quakertown, which God bless. Love Quakertown, but there's more to see. But college, I went to school in Connecticut, and I feel like that was I felt so sheltered in my hometown just because it was so small, and I always had that big personality and big dreams that I feel like just exceeded the size of my hometown. And it was like a weird feeling to be one of the only ones that like felt like that. Like, I was like bigger than my hometown, and not in like an arrogant way, just like I just always wanted to like see more. Like, wow. we're literally next to New York and, you know, Jersey, like all these places. But I think like when I started playing college basketball and meeting my teammates from different parts of the states, even the world, like I was like, there's more out there. There's more culture. There's more to learn. There's more to experience. Like, there's more than just how I grew up, like my background. So again, like going back to basketball, like basketball really opened my eyes to like the world. Even I lived in Ireland for a year and was like acclimated with that culture, which is so different from the States. So it's like, I think it's humbling just to get out of your hometown, because you're like, this isn't the only way of life. And I think like that's kind of what helped me find my true self, because again, like when you're confined,
you were there.
I did, I don't know, to that hometown, like you only know one way, like, but it's like, how do I know that that's the best lifestyle for me and like my potential and like who I'm made to be? So I don't know, I always knew that I was gonna get out, like not in my hometown was the perfect environment to grow up in, like very like family oriented, again, like you knew everyone, so like I loved it. And I think God's intentional about that, like he'll choose environments for you to be a part of at different ages, different seasons of your life. But I knew I was ready to come out here, and like I just like, I think like God was whispering to me like for a while to come out here, and like now being out here and reconnecting with my faith and like again like trying all these different things, like I know that was meant to be like a part of my story. But
wow, I love something that you said, like, well, I love everything you said, but I'll pick up this specifically. You talked about moving out here, and you've actually said quite a bit, even just in the last portion of our conversation, about like coming out here, figuring out who you are. And I think that's so valuable, speaking to this concept of thinking that you're someone and then realizing, I was talking to one of my friends, and she said something to me one time that blew my mind. And she said that God showed her that she realized that like most of her life was a season, and who she thought she was not who she was. And so now she has this dramatic reintroduction to herself, and she's having to wrestle with the idea that who she was is not who she is becoming. And so now you feel like, okay, this is all I've known, but this is what I'm being shown. So how do I navigate the balance and the borders between the old me and the new me I've never known? And it almost feels counterintuitive. And so a couple of things. My first question is, you said something about like reconnecting with God. Now, were you like, what was your upbringing and your awareness of God? Was that like someone, did you know about God growing up? Was that like, were you deeply connected and then you kind of like I'm gonna kind of like figure this out? Or like, what was your experience like with God, the church, like all that stuff?
I have always felt connected to God. Like, and I mean, I now thank him so often for it, because I feel like I feel so favored by him, especially now looking back on everything that he covered me from. I'm like, wow. Like, but I grew up in a Lutheran church. My dad was the one to kind of like lead our family there. His parents, my grandparents, were like very of the faith. So my dad was the one.
Told you, need that water. H2O.
Holy water.
It's like, we'll be back after these sips.
So yeah, I would go to Sunday school. My mom was a Sunday school teacher. Then funny enough, like high school, I transferred to a Catholic high school. So I got to experience like Lutheran, then like Catholicism. When I got to college, I was a part of Fellowship of Christian Athletes. So that was more Christian. Like, and it's funny, like I never really noticed like how many religions I was a part of, like leading up to now. But yeah, I always felt like I had the relationship with God. I feel like I was never really consistent going to church, but I would pray. And I always felt that like favor. Like I always felt like God like had this like spotlight on me of just like, I don't know, just kind of like keeping him in his vision. And, but like, it wasn't until I got out to LA. So this context kind of like sets up how I got to my church, but I came out here in last January, a year ago, and took tours. So I'm from the East Coast. I flew out here, had like 5 set up, just not options. Like it was like, I was touring this Venice apartment. I was like, there's just like cockroaches.
Yeah, trust me. You
I'm rubbing dust.
You end up getting like roommates you didn't see on the lease.
So I was like, that one's out. And then, of course, Marina Del Rey, it's like $5,000 for a closet. So I was like, that one's out. And I feel like God just like kind of like crossed off like all of them until this downtown apartment. And
you're realizing this. I love how you say like you feel like God crossed that off.
Yeah.
But you're only able to see that in hindsight.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk about that. So go on.
You're
like, I'm checking with you.
Yeah. So this downtown apartment, I don't want to say like it was like my fallback or like only option, but like kind of, because like I didn't see a whole lot of apartments when I was out here, so I was just like going with the best of the worst. It's not a bad apartment. let me not act like, but no. So anyway, like got here beginning of March, and then it was Easter Sunday, so I was like, let me be a creaster, let me check off Easter service. So I Google and I'm like, churches near me. That's how elaborate my search was. I go, churches near me. It's like 10 p.m. on Saturday night. And
you weren't even thinking about it like that.
As I say,
she was like 2 hours gonna be
wait, tomorrow's Easter.
I'm pretty sure he popped back up. Yes, like tomorrow. I gotta go say what's up to the church thing. He popped up on Easter. Let me go pop in.
Now knowing what I know about Easter, I'm like, oh my gosh. Okay. First church pops up. I'm like, bet. Going to 11 a.m.
I like
service.
That. Just keeping it simple.
Like, right.
You're not like going through like Yelp reviews or anything. Like, you know, like this church is heresy. Like,
so like 0.1 miles. I was like,
You're like, word, let's do it.
So go to Easter service and have been there ever since.
Wow.
And I mean, like, that's why I like gave the context of the apartment search, because proximity. Like he was literally putting me in his presence. Like, proximity to his presence. And
if you didn't do that, we wouldn't be sitting here, because we both go to our church. We serve at our church. That's how I met you through my friend, our friend. I'm not trying like that. This is my guy. But he had a birthday party and that's where we met. And then I saw you again at church, and I was like, I think we ended up talking or praying for someone or something happened. But it's just crazy how that step that you didn't even think would be a big deal has ushered in so many opportunities and community and people in your life that now you could not fathom living without, which is unbelievable. It's crazy how you could just take one step. And it actually goes to this scripture in the Bible where it says, I think it's in Psalm 37, but fact check me if that's wrong. It says, the steps of a righteous person are ordered of the Lord. How then can they perceive their own way? I think in Psalms it says a good man's steps are ordered of the Lord. And then I think in Proverbs it talks about the continuation. That's like, how can you even perceive your own way? So the thought is, when I'm walking with God, when I'm walking in purpose, when I'm walking in relationship, maybe even in a deep way or in a shallow sense, because God is a good father and he loves me, his love language is leading. God's love language is leading us as a good father. So people say, prove it, pull up a scripture. But in Romans 8, it literally says that as many of these that are led by God, they are the sons or the children of God. Wow. So God, the solidification of your sonship or your relationship with God is in the fact that he leads you. Yeah.
And so fast forward, I'm going to church, being like disciplined with that, but it wasn't a force at that point. Like, I know sometimes like people are like, oh, I got to go to church on Sunday. Like, no, like I was excited to hear the word. And I feel like our church is just like I call it like a challenging church. I feel like I was like just being called like to the next level of like my faith, yes, but also just maturity and like that next level of life. But anyway, like on my birthday is when I got baptized. Wow. And that was huge because I was baptized as a baby, but making the choice like that, I think we talked about this last time we talked, but God doesn't expect or want or need anything from us. So using our free will that he has given us to choose to love him back is the greatest thing that we could ever, like the greatest gift that we could ever give to God. So when I got baptized as an adult.
Hold on. That is unbelievable. That's crazy. Okay, hold on. So you just said that us loving God with our free will is the greatest gift we can give back to him, right? Well, that makes perfect sense, because how can you show love? What's the best way to show love to someone who is love? Loving them back with everything that you have. If I can give it, like, that's wild to me. God is pure love. And I'll also just preface this for everyone that's watching. I always say this, like, you don't have to believe to receive, right? So if you're just kind of taking things and being like, that's interesting, let me take that. Let me sit with that. Like, if you don't believe in God, that's cool. That's totally fine. Like, we're all on our spiritual journey. But I will say, one thing that's encouraging to me is I want to water what matters and what's mattered in my life. And I want to invite you into this conversation, knowing that it's okay if you don't, and there's space for that. But I do think that just as there's space to not believe, there's also space to believe. Just like there's space to doubt, there's also space to have faith, because doubt is faith, just in the wrong direction. Because you're believing it. You're believing so much that it doesn't exist, that's now your belief or your identity. And so just my encouragement is just like lean in and listen, and as we're just continuing this honest and just raw and vulnerable conversation.
And this is one thing that's been on my mind and heart since being in LA, because I see a lot of people bought into trends. So my challenge to you is try this trend. Try this whole believing in God trend, because I promise you, when you encounter God, it's a trend that sticks. Like, I've tried a lot of things to fill the void that I think each of us experience. And it's just, it's the void of love. Like, and God is love. So it's like,
oh wait, hold on. See, this is why we can't talk. This is why I was so nervous about inviting her on, because I knew this was gonna happen.
A chart.
It literally. Okay, so check this out.
Okay.
This is the thing. People say, "Oh, well, like sin doesn't satisfy." That's a lie. It does, because the Bible says sin is pleasurable for a season, but in the end, it brings death. So it satisfies, but it'll screw you. Like, that's literally what happens. Like, you're cooked, literally. And so, like, yeah, you're either going to hear "well done, my good and faithful servant," or you're going to hear "well done," and you'll be cooked. Like, that's just what's up. But at the end of the day, I look at it simply like this. Like, the best way to put it is, like, does drinking satisfy? Yes. Does sex satisfy? Yes. Do drugs satisfy? Yes. Some of you are probably looking at me like I am crazy, but it does.
No, it does.
For a season. Until the high wears off. Until the heartbreak sets in. Until the feeling that your identity is now being changed and morphed into this version of you that you've never known. And now the thing that you chose is now a chain. And now you're chained to a choice. And now the very thing that was meant to bring you freedom is now what you are a slave to. So now you're a slave to your cravings. You're a slave to your habits. And the beautiful thing is, like, God offers you freedom by being able to choose. See, a lot of us are chained because we think we don't have a choice. Oh, this is what my father did. This is what my mother did. Like, this is what all my friends are doing, and I don't have a choice, so I'm going to live this way. But in actuality, you don't have to live that way. And you're not talking to people that are free and have never picked up a chain. Sometimes I realize in my life, God has given me freedom, but I still pick up my chains. And I put them back on. I sit there and I'm just like, well, it is what it is, you know? And in my life, I'm learning the value of choosing truth. Because the Bible says the truth will set you free, but it's not just the truth that will set you free. It's the truth that you apply that will set you free. Yeah. I can know, this is not a good relationship. This is toxic. And I can still choose that. And now I'm left in bondage. But if I know the truth and say, hey, listen, I know my value. I know what God says about me. I know who I'm meant to be. I know that as I'm navigating this thing called life, that I can find my identity. And so I love how you brought up this concept of, like, trying a trend. But the cool thing about, like, even saying, okay, church just seems trendy right now, you'll come to find out that more than a trend, believing in God, even beyond church, is truth.
Yeah, I was going to say, try the truth. Because that is, so coming from a small town, right? And then coming out to LA, there's so much noise. And, like, LA is a dark city. Like, I felt it being here. And I don't know if it's Hollywood. I don't know if it's, the industry, but there's so much noise. And I feel like, especially in the day and age of social media, you got a lot of, even podcasts, you got a lot of podcasts out there. You got a lot of experts. You got a lot of people that, are just haphazardly sharing their experiences. There's just so much noise. And I think that is why I was so confused, because in trying to find myself, I'm, like, listening to all these voices and I'm finding a little bit of truth in each one, but it's hard for me to, like, rebrand myself, because I'm like, all right, this kind of makes sense, but it wasn't sustaining. And I was like, this kind of makes sense, but I don't agree with, like, that half of it. So I was just so confused. And, like, in that like, that's what the enemy wants. He wants you confused, because that's when you choose the chains, is when you're confused. And I never understood the freedom that's talked about in relationship with God until I started reading the Bible and realizing, like, we all ask for a blueprint to life. That is it. Like, having one source to reference when I have questions, and having one source to be able to read and have guidance on something, and, like, to know that is the right answer, that is what we are all looking for. Like, we are looking for answers, and, like, answers that lead to us feeling good and benefiting and, like, in our best interest. And that is what, like my relationship with God is now, like you were saying, like he leads us. And I just feel like ever since surrendering control and just really like just believing in that truth, reminding myself of that truth, I am the most free I have ever been. And like and we talked about this before starting this podcast. We are not trying to preach at anyone, because we are like walking in our relationships with God right now, like
figuring it out.
But what, like, I'll be the first to say, like, I was stuck in that cycle of chains, like, and that's the difference between happiness and joy. Like, happiness is temporary, and yes, you can go through life stringing happiness moments together for sure, but it's exhausting. It is gonna lead to burnout, like, of your soul eventually. Like, it's so hard to keep up with happiness, but joy is something that's internal. And it's something that can't be changed with circumstance. And
I'll go as far as to say it like this: there's a difference between happiness and wholeness. Because a lot of times our happiness has holes in it, and so we are happy for a moment, and it doesn't fill us to fullness. And so we water things, like we like, my favorite thing about just trying to live my life from this space of being like, the grass isn't greener on the other side, it's greener where I water it. What am I watering me? What am I watering? Is what I'm watering allowing me to water others? Because if I'm happy but I'm not whole, then I don't have anything to bring to anyone else. If anything, the things that I bring, if I'm not whole, then I'm broken. So I can be happy and broken, right? And I'm bringing brokenness to people's life because I think my happiness is the right direction to walk in. But that's actually leading to me being broken. And then I'm inviting other people in my brokenness. But the thing I love about God is that you bring your brokenness to God and you become beautifully broken. You become broken in such a way where you realize that I'm even with my mistakes, even with the things that I've been through, I'm broken, but I'm beautifully broken because I'm being made whole in my brokenness, and I don't have to run from it. My story and everything that I've been through is all part of it. And I think something that you said that I love is you're talking about like how when you came to LA and you were like finding like the truth in these like places, because that's the thing about deception. Deception is a little bit of the truth. Yeah. So you hear it, you'll be like, oh, that's why there's so much false news, fake like misinformation. You're just like that's like the picture of like the news network, but there ain't no possible way that's real, right? And so I think a lot of times the problem is that in a broader sense, we find destiny in drops.
You got all these one-liners.
I gotta write them down. I don't know where they come from. They're just here. We find destiny. Divine downloads. Listen. I'm like, I need more than a terabyte. But we find destiny in drops a lot of times when it comes to what we're pursuing and the life we want to live. And the things that fill us up momentarily. And it's like, oh, I think that's destiny. And then until the drops, as we drink the drops, the cup that we're drinking from is dry. And so now we're looking for it in something else. We're looking for that satisfaction. We're looking for that fulfillment. And so I think destiny is found more in identity than it is in the drops that we're drinking. And so when you know who you are, people say you know whose you are, and that's important. But I think even more so in knowing whose you are, you'll know why you're here. Yeah. Because if you know who you are and whose you are, but you don't know why you're here, then you miss the whole entire point. So it's about constantly taking steps of growth and being like, and that's just going deeper and deeper into relationship. And so I think a question that I'll ask you is like, obviously you talked about like getting baptized on your birthday and like changing, like your lifestyle changing and whatnot. What has been something that is just like shaking you to your core, almost to the point where like the old you would be surprised meeting the new you?
I just by the world standards had the resume. Like, I mean, I earned a full scholarship to play basketball. I got my master's, played basketball overseas. I've gotten awards through school and basketball. Like, was a good kid. Like
We get it. You're heavily decorated.
But I'm telling you that because that's what my life looked like, but it's not what it felt like. And that confused me because I'm like, wait, like everyone's praising me. Even my parents are clapping for me. Like I'm doing what I should be doing. Like this is like by the world standards, like I am like on top of the world, but I didn't feel like that. And so I think like my old self looking at my new self would just be so happy that I'm feeling as good as my life looks. And I think that's the trap of social media. Everyone's like looking at themselves and like their life from like that outward lens. And it's like, okay, what does my life look like to other people? Who do I look like to other people? But it's like, how do you feel? Like, does your Instagram page, like, do you feel as good as like those photos look? Like, did you really, like, were you really present on that vacation that you're posting about? Like, is your relationship as fulfilling as like people are convinced it is? Like, that's really the reality check I had, because I'm like, I can keep building this resume. Like I can have the successful job in sales. I can be providing for myself out in LA, but like, if I don't feel good, I'm going to get to the end of my life and be like,
what did I do? Man, that is so good. That is so good. Even like, I don't know if you heard, but like the car was honking. They were like, that's what's up. Like they're spinning in there. Okay. So Taylor, I cannot with you. I said your full name. I didn't say Tay. Like I said your full name. That's how much everything you said is resonating.
My full government?
The full government. Yeah, I mean, apparently it's T-Bone, so we can with that. Which is such a hard name. But man, I say it like this. We live in a world where we think curated collages equal confidence. But if anything, it equals a lot of times insecurity. Wow. Because we show the world what we want them to see, and we're left with our bones that we're trying to bury. And so everyone thinks this is who you are. But then it stops us from letting people get really close, and the very thing we crave, which is intimacy, we actually end up being void of, because we're afraid that when we invite people into our lives, they'll step into a void. And so we try to avoid the void by projecting and pretending instead of actually living a life that we were destined to live. Instead of actually saying, hey, I'm going to be vulnerable about my struggles. I'm going to be vulnerable about what's going on. I'm going to be vulnerable about the fact that, hey, like, I'm not everything that you think. But wouldn't it be so much better for me not to be everything that you think, so I can be everything that I am, and I invite you into the process? Because it's actually in that moment that I can truly be what everyone craves and desires, which is being seen. Because at the end of the day, the only reason why we post is to be seen. At the end of the day, the only reason why we, at the core of our being, we desire to be seen, because it's a scary thing to feel like people are not looking at you, but they're looking through you. And you are invisible, and all you have to offer is your looks or your charm or your swag. But when people get to the root of who you are and the brokenness in your life and the pain and the traumas that you've experienced, they would rather walk away because they know the cost of what it looks like to actually stay.
You literally just said a poem. I'm like, this is open mic night.
Open mic morning.
Prophetic poet.
Hey, I've heard it before. But like, that breaks my heart. And I think that living a life that is impacted by truth should be clearly seen. If you don't see it in me, then I'm not living the truth. I might believe the truth, but I can't even say that I believe something that I'm not willing to live. So I think I believe it, which is deception, and that's scary.
It's not crazy. Let me sometimes I think faster than I talk. Deception. I used to not give the enemy power, let me restart. Why can't I talk? I used to not give the enemy acknowledgement because I thought that acknowledgement was power. And that is exactly what the enemy wants. Like, the enemy wants you to think that those thoughts that we know aren't ours, or the limiting beliefs that we're like, where'd they come from? Like, the enemy wants you to think that those are your own and aren't him. And like, as soon as I started acknowledging like the enemy's arrows and the enemy's attacks, and separating those negative emotions and those negative thoughts from me, like, that is when I just had this, like, again, newfound freedom. But I just wanted to speak on that because I feel like deception is one of those things, like, if you think you're not being deceived, you are. Like, and like, same with like pride. If you think you're not prideful, like, you are. That was just a side comment. Wait, I had another thought. I'm trying to follow them all.
I'm digesting.
What did you say?
I don't know.
Oh, man, it will come back.
Okay, so let's think about it like this. And there's one thing that I really want to get to. Literally, just one thing.
Okay.
And so we're gonna get to that, but I do want to touch on what you just said. Let's talk about this concept of deception, and not even just on a spiritual lens, but on a practical lens.
Mm-hmm.
You thinking that you have to be someone that you're not is deception.
Mm-hmm.
And you can be like, oh, I know the truth, or like, I know who I am, or I know what's up. But if you're living a life separated from your purpose, you're deceived.
Mm-hmm.
If you're living a life outside of your intended use or intended placement or your intended position on this planet, you're deceived. And you're like, okay, well, what is it like? Okay, well, let me tell you what it looks like. If you're out here using a fork to eat soup, I would say you're a psychopath. Why are you doing that? You know how long you're going to be eating that soup? You're going to look insane. And the only reason why is because you're using something outside of its purpose.
Wow.
Can you still get a little soup and maybe you get a little noodles if it's chicken noodle soup, that's your vibe. Can you get a little sustenance a little bit? But after time, when you're the soup, you're going to be left with so much more than you can actually get because you're using the wrong tool. You're using it outside of your use. Why do I say that? Because we do that every single day of our lives.
Wow.
We're out here trying to be something in a world that it works a little bit. I put a facade on. I show I'm not going to be vulnerable. I'm not going to live my life in a way that's honest. I'm going to kind of just show what I think people want to see. I'm going to be a person eating soup with a fork. And because everyone else is doing it, it's fine. It's okay. Everyone else is doing it. If I use the spoon, I'm going to look crazy.
Yeah.
But what if everyone's crazy and you're the person that's sane? What if it actually takes you standing up for what you know is true in a world that is spitting a chorus of just lies, nonsense, people, everyone has a mic, everyone's saying something, it's all a trend, it's all flashy. And you know what's funny? Faith isn't flashy. It's not sexy to believe for something that you can't see. It's not sexy to believe in a God that you have never seen with your own eyes, but have only experienced. It's not sexy, but you know it because you hold it so valuable because of what he's changed in your life. And I think to kind of segue into the point that I wanted to make, I love how you talked about, like, you're now discovering what it looks like to live this life and a version of you that you're discovering. Like, what do I like? And that's hard to like step out and do that when at this age we should be so set in our ways. We should have everything together. Newsflash, I've talked to people like, yeah, I'm 21. I'm just trying, bro. Like, I'm like, sit down. Sit down. Go sit down and eat some popcorn. Go smell it. Go do something.
Go drink some soup.
Bro, go drink some soup. Use a spoon. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm like, bro, you're fine. You need to relax. This is crazy. Like, just relax. But I don't think at this age we need to be set in our ways. I think we need to be set in our faith.
Wow. A mini point. I work less hard now than I did when I call it BC, before Christ, before my baptism. I work less hard now than I did when I was playing Division I basketball, when I was playing overseas, when I was earning my master's. Like, and it's not in the sense of I don't work hard, but I'm not trying to control. It is a surrendered life. And like, I want that for you. Like, if you're listening, like I want you to like end the burnout. I want you to stop thinking like you got to strive and achieve and like work like 20 times harder than you do, because like what God has for you will be for you. Like, I just living surrendered, it's so freeing, because you realize that like there's so many uncontrollables in life, and like God is in control, and like, again, what's meant for you will find you and will be for you. So like when you just kind of surrender to that idea and believe in that idea, like life just opens up.
Bro, why am I looking at you like this?
Because what you had to say is what I just said.
Like, maybe you're listening and you can't see how I'm looking at her. I'm just like, what the heck, bruh. Told you, bruh. Her last name is Heard, so you gotta listen. This is literally the only thing that I wanted to talk about.
Wow.
That's actually not true. I want to talk about your life. That's a crazy thing to say.
No, but I love that it's at the end.
Yeah, I know, because that's just how we do. I'm not even surprised. And really, every end is just a beginning, and every beginning is just after an end. So this is not the end. This is just part one. I know that was crazy. What I wanted to talk about is this. I was talking to my homie last night, and we were talking about just our lives and things that have happened, things that that we would have never thought possible, right? And for me, what I landed on was this concept of trust. And I want to read this passage from the Bible. Like I said, the beautiful thing about this passage is it's so popular. I'm sure people have heard of it. If you haven't heard of it, amazing. I'm so happy to walk you through it. But this is in Proverbs 3, verse 5 through 7. We might go through 8 to 8. But Proverbs is actually really cool because it's considered wisdom literature. So if you're watching this and you're just like, I don't believe that's real, well, it's wisdom literature. So get wise. This is what it says. It says, and I'm reading from the Passion Translation because it is so poetic and beautiful and makes me turn into a marshmallow without any fire. Like, you know, like marshmallows when they're roasted, like that's how I feel when my favorite
like topping,
bro.
And that's underrated. Because when do we hear someone putting marshmallow on their froyo with their ice cream?
Honestly, I feel like that is gas. I could see how that would be gas, considering the fact, like the texture, you know, like you have like some that's really creamy, but some that's a little firm, but it also has like I cannot talk about food right now. I'm a foodie. That is my, people say, oh, what's your love language? I'm telling you, as long as you guys know, physical touch, words, I don't care about that. Give me some food. Listen to what this says. It says,
prayer is my love language.
Okay. Well, now you make me feel like how you gonna just,
but like feed me too.
That's my spiritual love language. Feed my spirit
and feed my hunger.
I was about to say, all right, cool. Pray for the next 30 days. Let me know how that goes. I'll be at your funeral. But so this is what it says. It says, trust in the Lord completely and do not rely on your own opinions. I love how it says opinions, because that proves to me my opinions aren't facts. My opinions aren't final. That my opinions might be my truth, but they're not the truth. And what happens when your opinion looks like truth, but it's actually trash? You're like, that's kind of harsh. Well, no, how you talk to yourself is harsh. The fact that you're not kind to yourself is harsh. The fact that you think that you're less than is harsh. That's not truth. That's trash. And right now, I'm here to take it out. And I'm here to let you know that there's so much value in your life. I don't know what people have said about you. I don't know what's happened to bruise and wound your heart. But you were made for more. There's a purpose inside of you. The world is not looking for someone else. It's looking for you to take off your mask, to sit on the grass, and realize that you have something that is worth watering so it can grow. And not just be something beautiful to look at. Trees that have fruit are not just something beautiful to look at, but they have something to offer to people that are starving. And I want you to know that, because I believe that with my entire heart.
Mm-hmm.
Man. Now I'm picking up. It says with all of your heart. Rely on him. So y'all didn't get that. I said I believe that with my entire heart. And then the next line was with all of your heart. Okay, I'm done. It says with all of your heart, rely on him to guide you. And he will lead you in every decision you make. He'll lead you in every decision you make. Become intimate with him in whatever you do. And he'll lead you wherever you go. That's just verse 6, bro. I read 2 verses and I feel like I just ate Thanksgiving from my soul. I feel so full. And so what would you say, just as someone that has stepped out in faith and someone that is stepping out in faith, to the person that is trying something new, to the person that's terrified, and to the person that's trying to pursue this new truth? What would you say to them?
What's the worst that could happen, right? So you start reading the Bible, you start believing in this, you start seeing your life change, you start doing good deeds, you start feeling good, you start seeing good people enter your life. You get to the end of your life, you find out God's not real, heaven's not real, you just die, lights turn off. Does that really cancel out the good life that you just lived? Like, I mean, I'll put it like that, because clearly if you're searching for something else right now, like if there's a part of you that's like, yeah, I'm resonating with this, I don't feel fulfilled. If part of you is searching, then that means what you're doing isn't working. So you might as well lead this life that we're talking about, where you experience peace, you experience comfort, you experience just self-control, the fruits of the spirit, like kindness, gentleness, like you experience all these good things, you have a good life, like, you know, even if it's not real, I know it's real because I've encountered God. Like, he will reveal himself if you ask. I'm confident in that. I'm sure of that. It's like, why not choose the life that's more fulfilling and easier and lighter?
And it's only easier not because it's not difficulty. Yeah. Just because you have a cheat code. Literally, and God is the cheat code. Yeah. God is literally, like, it's unfair. It is unfair. Life is unfair as it is. But it's really unfair when you're led and you're not striving. People look at it, that's unfair. How did you do that? Well, faith is unfair because faith moves mountains. Faith does not have to obey the laws of physics. I've seen it happen in my life. I love you talked about the fruit of the spirit because that some people can be listening, like, the fruit of the what? The fruit of this. Where do I get that from? It's really simple. The fruit of the spirit is, I love how fruit is produce. So produce in itself is something that has been produced, right? So the fruit of the spirit is simply put as this way: the evidence of God working in your life. It's the evidence of the Holy Spirit. And what are those? What does the evidence look like? The Bible says that it's love. You're kinder to people. You're kinder to yourself. You love God. You love other people. You receive that love to give that love. God waters you so you can water other people. Joy, peace. Maybe you're really anxious. And you see that as you start getting rid of this idea of control. We don't have control. You can't change the light from being red to green. So trust me, if you can't fly, you really don't have anything going for you. Like, that's just what I see. Like, if you got to sit in traffic like all of us, you're cooked. So peace, right? Maybe you're anxious. Let it go. Let go of not control. It's a crazy thing to think that you have control when you just have an idea of control. Mm-hmm. You don't even have control. You have an idea of control. And that's what has you bound. When you release that, you feel so much more free. Mm-hmm. So peace, love, joy, peace, patience. All of my worst moments as a human being are when I'm in a hurry and when I'm trying to hurry things. So I realized that as I develop patience, that I'm so much more kind and I'm so much more peaceful. Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. I love how you said at the end of your life, you can look back and say that you lived a good life. Mm-hmm. Well, even in the Bible, when God created everything, he was saying it was good. It was good. Mm-hmm. It was good. It was good. And so when you invite God into your life, you're just inviting God who is good. I say it like this. Every time God did something, he said it was good. Mm. Isn't it crazy that God and good is just one letter removed? I think God just added an extra O to his name. And everything in your life that's truly good is because of God. God's like, listen, it's only good because I'm in it. It's only really good because I'm present.
On that note, and Bible check, fact me if I'm wrong.
Hey,
but I'm pretty sure God says good for everything, except for humans, he says very good. Mm. So to those of you listening, and I'm gonna fact check it, but I'm almost positive again. Like, this is me being transparent with where I am in my faith. Like, I'm still walking, but I am almost positive in Genesis it says, like, everything that he created before he created Adam, he said good. With Adam, he said very good. Like, God loves you so much that he gave you the choice to not love him back. Like, he literally put you on this earth with the understanding you may never choose to love him, yet he still wants to bless you. He still wants to give you gifts. He still wants to just spoil you as his child. And when I think about that relationship with God, like, God's faithful. So, like, he will always look out for you. Like, even when I was walking in sin, even when I was bound by chains, like, he was still looking out for me. The difference now is, like, I compare it to, like, parents, because that's what it is. I compare it to parents and children. Like, when a dad asks the kid to share his candy, the dad can, like, yank it out of the kid's hand. The dad can reach in the bag himself, but it's different when the child offers it to their parents. That's a different feeling. Same with, like, when you get a good grade on your report card. It's different sharing that news with your father than it is him seeing your report card and knowing, like, that you're doing well. But, like, it's the sharing. It's like, that's the intimacy we're talking about, is the relationship. Like, God wants to be a part of, like, the lows, wants to be a part of the high. Like, he wants to just be a part of your life. And, like, the one thing, this is what I was thinking earlier, and this is, like, a download that God, like, gave me, and he challenged me, questioned me. He was like, would you rather be further in the world but sit further from me in heaven? And that's what I mean by getting to the end of your life. You may have the resume that people deem successful, but until you're fulfilled, you'll always feel separated. You'll always feel that void. You know the void I'm talking about. Because, like, we all think it's, like, just us that has that void. No, that is universal. And it's separation from your Father. And I can attest that once you encounter your Father, your Heavenly Father, God, Jesus, like, that void is filled. And that is the freedom that you walk in, because now you're not leading your life and, like, searching for things to fill that void. Now you have that void, and now it's just like,
oh my gosh. Okay, so you said something and I feel like this just really hit me. I mean, like I said, everything you're saying is just ridiculous. It's not ridiculous, it's great. But okay, let's look at it like this. We work so hard to build our resume. And a lot of times we think our resume is what gives us worth, because I can show for all these things I did. Mm-hmm. But it's not really about what you do. It's about who you are. When the lights go down, when you're in your bed at night, thinking about the things that you wish you could do, but you're afraid that if you step out, you'll fall on your face and everyone will laugh. We're so focused on our resume, building our resume through work. I want to give you permission to resume searching for your worth. And not in your work, in who you are. I want to give you that full permission right now for you to realize that nothing you could ever do, nothing you could ever accomplish would be greater than you realizing that you are God's greatest accomplishment. It's not the stars he put in the sky. It's not the clouds that hang there. What if I were to tell you that the stars that God put in the sky, the clouds that he hung there, the sun that shines, the moon in the sky, what if I were to simply tell you that that is because God loves you so much? That is the only reason why it's there. It's God's biggest accomplishment so much. You are God's biggest accomplishment so much to the extent that he put all of these things here just to show off. Mm-hmm. Just to say, hey, look what I did for you. The conditions that we have to breathe oxygen, eat good food, it's all for us. Mm-hmm. To reveal his love. And God wants to give you good gifts through you realizing that he loves you so much. And so we're going to have to do part 2 because we didn't even get to the depth of like what I wanted to talk about. But I want to say this for people that are looking and they're like, what are practical ways? I feel like this conversation, really to summarize it, is trust is a must. So it's like, what are...
You be saying bars so casually. Like my mind has to catch up and process. Trust is a must.
Well, like, I mean, that's a borrowed bar. Like, we all know it. I can't take credit. Some guys like, I made that. I'm going to sue you. Cease and desist. I'm just like, bro, cease and desist. Give me a cease and assist. Like, come on. I put you on. That was an alley-oop. So whoever came up with that, you're probably not even on this planet because I feel like it's been along for a long time. But shout out to you, whoever you are. You know who you are. But trust, what does trust look like? So many of us are accustomed to falling right in our face. So why don't you just trust fall? You've been falling. Why don't you just trust fall? It's a better way to fall. Mm. You can trust if you have good people around you. Trust that you can take that fall. Trust that you can, and not even just with people, truly from the bottom of my heart with God. Whatever, if maybe for you it could look like different levels. Maybe it's like, I don't believe in this. That is so fine. That's okay. But maybe trust looks like a little step of just being like, God, if. There's so much trust in that if, because it takes so much trust to pray and just have a conversation. God, if you're really real, reveal yourself to me. Show me, like Jeremy and Tay, they chopping it up. I kind of want it. This is interesting. Like, reveal yourself to me. Mm-hmm. Cool, do that. Maybe trust looks like for you stepping in writing something or putting something out into the world. Maybe trust looks like sitting in stillness because all you've known is running. Whatever trust looks like for you. I'm not telling you to jump off a building. Don't do that. I'm telling you. Please. I'm telling you, don't jump off a building. I'm just telling you to jump into what you've been burying. Whatever you've been burying that you think is not worth showing the world, jump into it. And God wants to take that shovel with you and unearth treasures where you thought there was nothing here but trash. God's like, no, let's dig this up. Let's show you what's really going on in the inside of your heart. When you invite him in that trust, he starts revealing to you things that he only put in you, because guess what? Only the manufacturer can speak to the man. God manufactured us. Woman, man. You still got man in your name. You feel me? So at the end of the day, God is the manufacturer of man. And he knows why he placed us on this planet. And so you don't have to live like a fork trying to eat soup. You can be a spoon. You can actually live. So let God unearth what he's put in you. And so I feel like as we wrap up, and this is not even going to be done because we're going to, like, we have to do part 2. Like,
speaking of digging, that was like this much soil that we just
unraveled. Bro, like what? Like, and you know what's crazy? What we say here on the lawn is that the soil is your soul. We want to water your soul, your mind, your will, and your emotions. We want to water that so it can grow, because what you water grows. And I say, if you know, you grow. And so if your soil is your soul, let's unearth with the riches and the beauty. And you know what's crazy? The best soil actually is like soil that's been pooped on. You're like, what? Like manure? Yeah, that's the best soil because it's fertile. Mm-hmm. So what if all of the failure wasn't final, but it was fertile? What if everything that you consider as failure wasn't final, but it was fertile? It was the failure in your life. What if it was the thing that would catapult you into a prosperous future? If you took it with trust and put it in the hands of the person that actually has the right seeds to plant in your life, so you can grow, not looking at other people's lives and saying, oh, their lives are better. Oh, they have it all together. No. If they have it all together, they have it all together on the floor. And they're showing you an angle that looks authentic, but there's no authority there. So my encouragement to you is, your failure isn't final. Your mistakes are not who you are. You are not made of your mistakes, but your mistakes can make you, if you put them in the hands of the right person, if you trust. So I invite you into a giant trust fall today. And Tay, I just want to know what you would say lastly about trust, since you've literally been living this out for your life. And as you're looking back, even in hindsight, and seeing God's hand and seeing who you're becoming, what can you speak to people about when it comes to trust and how they can do that in practical steps?
I want to say your brokenness is your breakthrough. As you were talking, that came to mind. So I had to share that. Your brokenness is your breakthrough. And I think I just sit here and it's so beautiful, like how confident I am that if you ask God to reveal himself, like how obvious he will show up for you. And I think that's really truly like how I've been able to trust him, because I'm just in constant communication with him. Like think about like how often you text your friends. Like I think about that with like how often I talk to God. Like I'm like, if he had a hotline, like how many texts would I have sent him today? Because like think about like any relationship, parental, friendship, like it takes work, it takes effort. And like I mean, God honors the surrender. Like he honors you, like, you know, putting that trust, that like, you know, that blind faith out there. He will honor that. And like, he will just meet you where you're at. And like, honestly, like the journey that I'm on right now is just like strings of trust. Like it's just like moments of trust compounded. That is truly like where I'm at in my life right now, is just not thinking about tomorrow, not thinking about a year from now, not thinking about like anything other than just like where my feet are at on the lawn. And just trusting him to mow the path. I try to make it farming.
It was great. And you know what I'll say? I want to be like, I love how you said like mow the path. And I'll say this, like, let's be lawn growers and not lawn mowers. That was on the spot. Let's be lawn growers and not lawn mowers. As we trust, as we live a life of trust, let's not rain on people's parade. Let's rain on their lives so they can grow.
I thought you were going to say their lawns.
I should have said that. I should have. But I think those are some awesome practical steps, and I want y'all to stay tuned for part 2 because we will be dropping it sooner than you think. Maybe, I don't know. But I want you to know, I want you to take this away. I want you to share this with someone. I want you to let them know how your trust, let's take a step back. I want to challenge you to trust.
Yeah.
Maybe you have trust issues, and that's okay. We all do. But what's one way this week that you can you can step out into trust? Maybe it's with a hard conversation. Maybe it's with trusting yourself and trusting that you have more to offer than this world and you've been letting everyone else know because you're actually afraid. But how can you step out in faith? How can you have a trustful moment? I want to know about your trustful moment. Mm-hmm. So I encourage you, like I said, at the end of all of these videos, I encourage you, drop a comment, share with a friend, shoot us a DM. We want to know what trust looks like for you this week. And you know what? We will keep you accountable. If you're saying, hey, listen, this is going to be my commitment to trust this week, let us know. And if you actually send us a DM and or you comment, we're going to do something special for you. So let us know how you're going to trust, and also let us know moving forward what it is that you want to talk about, what it is that you want to hear on the lawn. We love to talk about faith because it bleeds out of us, because it's, life is in the blood. And I feel like, I hope if you study my blood, you would see faith there somewhere, because that's literally the only reason why I am alive. I've had an opportunity to do crazy things. I have had terrible things happen in my life, but faith has been the fabric that has held me together. And so that's, people say, Jeremy, people tell me this all the time. You're like an old soul, like you have wisdom. And I'm not tooting my own horn, and I don't even take credit for that. It's simply because of the faith that I've decided to be like, I'm going to walk in this. Because trust me, sometimes I'm like, I don't even know where that came from. That's crazy. But I know it was God. And I just encourage you to step out in that. But my point was, if you want to talk about stuff like whatever's coming up for you. So if it's like you want to talk about health, emotional, mental, spiritual, physical, I think faith is the fabric that holds that together too. But I also want to narrow that down into practical things. So maybe it's relationship, and we want to talk that's what I wanted to get to. And maybe, I don't know, we stay tuned. We probably will. But whether it's relationships, whether it's finances, whether it's whatever you need right now to grow your life, let us know, because we want to water it. So that's my encouragement to you. Thank you so much for sticking around. Thank you so much for joining. I'm so happy we did this.
Thank you for letting me be a part of this conversation. It was like truly fulfilling. But and you had said this in your first clip that you posted on your page for the podcast. You had said I thought there was too many podcasts out there, kind of going with the thought of what makes mine different, and don't let the enemy deceive you into thinking, this is kind of full circle back to how we started this podcast episode, but that really is deception, the enemy trying to silence you from your calling or stop you from your calling. The thing you're most scared of is probably what God is calling you to do. So if it is a podcast, and I think that kind of ties into trust too. The thing that you're scared to trust or put your trust in is probably your calling.
It's probably what's more real than what you think is real.
Yeah.
If it terrifies you, don't run from it. Realize that in the terror, there is actually a space of trust, which is grace for you to go after it. We're not talking anymore. We are done.
Cut.
Taylor, T-Bone, Miss Heard, not related to Amber at all. Shout out to you if you're watching. We got nothing but love. But until we see you next time on the lawn, remember, go into this week and realize and live a life that is watered by truth, because the grass isn't greener on the other side. It is truly greener where you water it. And we love you so much. And we're going to see you on the next episode.